live with Daisy Wright, international career coach extraordinaire. We're so happy to have you on the show, Daisy. Good morning. How is everything?
Good morning. I am so happy to be here with you, Jack. It's a pleasure. I've been watching your other live streams, and I am learning. I'm not a job seeker, but I'm learning from your guests. So thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome. I'm so glad you say that because yes, because there's so many people who are giving advice that the light bulbs go on like, wow. Give you an example. I'm embarrassed to say, I think it may have been Hannah Morgan or Virginia Franco that were saying the difference between a CV and a resume. I always thought it was the same thing. And I've been in recruiting for 25 years. I had no idea that there were two different things. So you can't learn all the time. Like, for instance, I've learned that you are international oriented, that you offer career services really across the board, and you have several different programs in the works.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'll jump right into this, Jack.
Okay.
One of the programs I'm working on right now is an interview course, and I've titled it How to Crush the Interview and Land the Job You Want. And the reason I'm doing this is, a lot of things we do in terms of the job search, in terms of the coaching, is usually around the resume, the cover letter, the LinkedIn profile, and all of that. And that's only a small part of the job search. When people go to the interview, they literally clam up. They don't know what to say. They don't prepare themselves properly. And I work with mid-career professionals, emerging leaders, and executives, and some of them just don't know how to interview well.
Why do you think that is, Daisy?
One of the reasons I think is that many of them believe that if they tell their stories, then they're bragging. I worked once with a gentleman who was a director at the airport. And when I asked him to, tell me what you're proud of, what you're most proud of. And he said, Daisy, it's all a part of the job. I go to my job and I do it. And I said, can you identify something that you're really proud of, that made a difference? And he said, he started thinking, and then he said, soon after 9/11, we had to reorganize our safety protocols at the airport, but at his particular company. And he revamped the safety manual for his company. And I said, what difference does that make? And he said, oh, well, they were talking so much about it until it became the standard for the airport. So I said, that's something you should be proud of. He said he thought it was just part of the job. And this was a senior person. So those are the things that they just believe that people should see them and recognize the work that they have done. But if they don't toot their own horn, as I often said, nobody will know that they're coming.
It's so interesting you bring this up because, as a recruiter, I see two sides to it, Daisy, and I think you appreciate it. One is exactly the way you described. You have somebody who has an amazing background, but they don't feel comfortable selling themselves because to them, they feel it's like, it's weird. They didn't grow up feeling, yes, look at me. I'm so awesome. I'm great. I'm fantastic. They're more humble. They're more respectful. So it's hard to get out of the shell. But I wonder if you see this, the opposite. People who don't have the skills and don't have the talents, they're the ones who are bragging. That's nothing to brag about. They're the ones who are like, I'm so great. I'm so awesome.
Yes.
Not really. Do you see that too?
I see that all the time.
Yeah.
And here's how I tell my clients to stand out.
Okay.
I said, and we're all accustomed to the star, par, car, and all of those. But I say to them, because some people believe that because they're not in sales, they can't really tell people about their results, the star situation, task,
Well,
action,
for people who's not
result.
aware of it, what is the STAR? Like, so folks who are
Okay,
not
so
familiar
the
with that.
STAR is the situation, the task, action, and results.
Mhm.
When I coach my clients these days, I say to them, focus on the AI. And the AI has nothing to do with artificial intelligence.
Right.
It has to do with focus on the actions you took and the impact you made. And when they're able to do that, then they can reflect on their actions, what they did, and the impact they made. What difference did they come up with a new way of doing things? Did they invent something that made a difference? You know, did they come up with a program that, you know, put their company ahead of their competitors, you know, things like that. So when they're able to do that, they feel more comfortable talking about what they have done. And I'm saying, you have done it, claim it, it's yours. Because if you don't claim it, somebody else is going to do that.
Absolutely. Now,
Somebody's going to grab your story and run with it. And that's how you end up with people that you just mentioned. Those who say, yeah, I'm great, great. And yet they don't have the proof. Right?
So how do you do that? Do you role play? Do you sit down with one of your clients and say, okay, let's role play this out in terms of, you know, or do you first ask them to like maybe jot down what their skills are, what they're good at? How does it work behind the scenes?
Okay, so let me give you a typical example.
Mhm.
Someone is being interviewed for a director's role, for example. So we look at the job posting, and I say to my client, read through every line of that job posting and look at it to see which line aligns with your experience. And then I say to them, the interview questions that I'm going to be giving you will be based on this job posting. So I will just flip around the statement. I will say, describe a time when, and they have to go, that's part of their homework, to go home and try and answer some of those questions. Then they come back, and that's when we have the mock interview. Now, we cannot do the full mock interview, like the full hour, for example. We can't spend it on the entire, all the questions they would have prepared. But my aim is to find out if they understand the process, if they're telling their story, if they're looking at it from the situation or the challenge that they faced, and if they're focusing on the actions they took and what happens next. And I'll say to them, if you're answering the question and I'm not hearing what I need to hear, I'm going to do like this. This is a signal for you to stop. We're not doing, yes, I'm not getting it. And if you're getting it, then, you know, we go on and we go on. So that's the process I use with clients.
Do you also coach clients in terms of not just the substance, but how they say it? And what I mean by that is, like, you have, I can't tell you how many people I've interviewed who will just drone on about, like, I did this, I did that, I did this. And they're great things, but like the way they say it, it's like, it just falls between the cracks.
Right.
You know, because I find out if somebody, and I don't know if this is just me or this is common, if you're interviewing and speaking with somebody and they're upbeat and they're positive and they're like motivated and they're actively listening and making eye contact, to me, even if you don't have the skills of somebody else who's better, they'll choose that person because you realize that person, you know, they're motivated, they're fun, they're lively, they have a personality. Do you coach that too? Like how to bring that out of people?
Absolutely. You have to be passionate.
Yeah.
So passion might sound like a cliche, but you have to demonstrate that. You have to demonstrate enthusiasm. Yes, I'm really keen. I'm really keen. I'm raring to go. Because if they don't see that, then they're going to start looking for somebody else. And again, it's all based on your stories. If you have done the thing, please tell them about it. They can't read your mind. So you have to tell them, you have to tell them your story, and you have to tell them the difference that your actions made. So yes, it's all about passion. It's all about being enthusiastic. It's letting them know, going into their heads and letting them know, listen, I am the best thing since sliced bread. Even though even though you're not gonna, tell them that, in such words, but
Right.
your action and the way you phrase your answers, you want to convince them that you are the best person.
In addition to being the best person, are there other things that you kind of watch out for your clients? How to like really make them stand out? Because for instance, when you say about a story, lots of times when people tell like their career story,
Mm-hmm.
it is winding and boring, and they go off topic. It's, for instance, if they say, "Tell me about yourself,"
Mm-hmm.
they, well, in high school, I did, and it's like, oh my God, I have to listen to this story from high school to now. This is going to be terrible.
Yeah.
So, like, how do you coach people to tell a story? Because not everyone can tell a good story. Like to really
Yes.
be able to make it concise, sharp, have a beginning, have an end.
Exactly.
What is
Okay,
it?
so it's a
How to
couple
do
of
that?
things. One,
Yes.
when they're reviewing the tell me about yourself question,
Yeah.
I say to them, break it into 3 parts.
Mm-hmm.
Where you were, where you are now, and where you're going. And where you were does not mean where you were back in kindergarten or high school.
Right.
But it's more or less where you were in terms of your professional experience and how that experience aligns with the job that you're being interviewed for. So they'll come up with, and of course they're going to think of their accomplishments in those
Right.
roles. And then they get to where they are now. And again, they're telling them of the great things that they have done or they're doing right now. And where they're going. And I would say to them, as a segue into where they're going, I would say to them to say something like, when I saw this job posting, it aligned so closely with my career goals. And that's why I'm here with you now discussing the possibility of joining your organization. And that takes them right into where they're going.
It's interesting you say that, because I write about that exactly. Like, to say that, hey, I saw the job description and it really stood out to me.
Yes.
I have the background, the experience, so I couldn't wait to send my resume and hopefully get an interview. Yeah.
Exactly. And I also remind them that, remember that the interview is a conversation. It's not an it's not an interrogation. You have something that the employer wants and they have something that you want. So it becomes a conversation because you're interviewing them as well. You want to make sure that when you leave your current job, you're not jumping out of the frying pan into the fire. Mm-hmm. It's something, you're going into a job where you'll be able to contribute, but you'll also be able to be comfortable, to be happy in that new role.
In addition to that, what happens when you're in an interview and all of a sudden, like, and you've probably seen this, you just lose your trend of thought, you get a little nervous. How do you kind of get people back on track? Because I think that's a common thing that happens. They'll ask a question and you don't have a good answer, right? And then it just throws you off the rest of the interview, because all you're doing is beating yourself up in your head. Like, oh, I can't believe I blew that question. Now it's not going to work. So you just can't concentrate anymore. Right. How would you advise people? Because I see that a lot. How do you get them back in to, like, just forget it and just get right back in the game?
Yes. I see that often in my mock interviews as well. And my advice is to a couple of things. One, if the question is asked and you don't have a ready answer, you can either reframe the question, giving you time to think about it, but also making sure that you understood the question they're asking. That's one. Two, it's okay. None of us are perfect. So it's okay to say something like, wow, that's a great question. Give me a few seconds just to think about it. Again, remember, it's a conversation, right? And you're human. You're a human being, so anything can happen. Or you can actually say, you know what, I would love a little bit more time to answer, to think about this question. And you can all either say, you know, could we move on to the next one and we can answer, and I can answer this later on, or just take the few seconds just to think about it and answer. There is nothing wrong in doing, you know, in coming up with you know, answers or strategies like this, because again, where the interviewer knows that, you know, we will screw up sometimes, but that shouldn't be the end of the interview, the end of a good conversation.
You know, I love that advice, because what I find out oftentimes, an interviewer, an HR person, a recruiter, they just ask like the same cliche type questions. And I think a lot of times they don't even care about the answer. They're just doing it because they feel they should be doing it.
Yes.
You know, yeah. What's your strengths? What's your weakness? Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Right.
You know, all those like stereotype questions. It's just
Yes.
a default. So I think a lot too, you don't have to stress out, because if you don't have a quick answer, so what? They really don't even care for the most part. Clearly there's some that you need an answer, but others is like, kind of move on. You know,
I think, Jack, it's a mindset.
Yes.
They're there in that chair and they don't realize that many times the recruiter, the interviewer, is as nervous as they are. You know,
absolutely, absolutely.
They want to make sure they make the right selection, because if they don't, it's going to be costly for the organization. So sometimes they themselves are as nervous. And that's why I'm saying, you know, the interviewee, the candidate, can take advantage of that, you know, and can inject a little humor. Oh my goodness, you know, I have so many stories for that particular question, that let me take a few seconds to think which is the better story to tell you that will convince you that I am the best person. You should hire me.
Daisy, what you just said is like one of the biggest, you know, secrets in a way of what goes on behind the scenes, is that, the interviewer, the hiring manager, the HR person, they're more nervous than the candidate, because a candidate, let's say a candidate has a job, right? They can always go back to their job.
Yes.
But the person who's interviewing has to fill that role. And if they fill the role with someone who's a big loser, they're going to lose political capital, and their boss is going to say, Jack, like, what's wrong with you? How the heck did you hire this person? I'm not going to let you hire anyone anymore. So they are real. So instead of the job seeker being nervous, they should understand, like you're saying, it's really the interviewers who are kind of on edge, because if they make a mistake, they make a wrong hire, they're in trouble. Whereas if you have a job, you just go back to your job.
They're in trouble, and it becomes costly.
Yes.
You know, because when they hire someone and the person is there for a month, a week, 3 months, and they realize it's the wrong fit, then they have to start all over again.
Because then they're worried. Then they're also worried, okay, we hire this person and it's not working out, but then if we let them go, maybe they're going to sue us, because they're going to say, you let me go because of this or that. And so you have to worry about that, or you have to worry about the person coming in and just being that guy who's toxic and driving everyone crazy. And they're all going to look at you, Daisy, who hired him, and like, why did you hire? What's wrong with you, Daisy? Why did you hire this person? Now everyone hates you.
Exactly.
What goes on.
Right. And that's why it's important to, when they have the panel interview, that's why it's important, because the halo effect may come into play if I happen to see Jack and there's just something about Jack that I just love and I would love him to join my team.
Right.
But then when Christine or Tom, they're going to wonder, wow, Jack, what did you see in Daisy that we didn't see? And so the conversation becomes, okay, let's discuss that. And then the three of them arrive at a point where they said, yes, we saw that too, or no, let's take another look at her or somebody else, that kind of thing. Because you don't want the halo effect to, and the halo effect can be negative or positive. It could be a case where the moment you see a particular candidate, they just didn't hit it off well. You know, that first impression. And regardless of what they say next, you know, you have already arrived at a conclusion about that person. And so they might not, you know, go further in the interview. So that's why the panel interview is really important, because it really tests, really makes sure that, you know, we have a consensus around this particular candidate.
Can we unpack a couple of things? Because I love where you're going with this. Let's take the panel, whether it's a panel or what sometimes I might refer to as, you know, decision by consensus, is that when you interview nowadays, you can meet with three, if let's say you're mid-level to senior level, white collar executive, you might have to go 6-10 people that you're going to meet with. And oftentimes a lot of the people you're meeting with are so tangential to the process. They're just drawn in, and you got to get each one of those happy. So like, let's take that piece. Like, how do you switch gears? Because everyone's a little different. To act to the hiring manager, to act to a peer, to act to a subordinate, to act to this goofy person who has nothing to do with it, but they threw him in the mix, and you got to make that person like you, because if you don't like you, they're going to just say meh, and just everything gets scuttled. So do you help your people to kind of almost keep shifting, you know, back and forth depending on the person?
Right. I do that. And one of the things I say, Jack, and I mean, you have been in this industry for a long time, so you can tell me if this is a good strategy.
Sure.
But I usually say to them, yes, you're being interviewed by a panel, of course, but pay attention. First of all, find out who is the leader, right? And then pay attention. Whenever someone asks you a question, your attention should be on that particular person more. Yes, you can scan the body language of the other panelists, but pay that particular, they ask you a question, pay close attention to that person. Make sure you're focused on that particular person, so they can feel, you know, yes, he's paying attention to me and all of that. That's one of the strategies that I use, because you really can be darting from one to the other and wondering in your head, oh my goodness, what are they thinking? What are they thinking? No, you make sure you're focused on the question that was asked and on the questioner, the person who asked the question.
I think you're so right. To me, it always feels like when first, it's like right now, you're the only person in the world right now. That's it. Like in my mindset, there's nothing else going on. I'm not looking out the window to see what's happening. I'm not listening if my dogs are barking or my cats are running around. I'm just hyper focused, because if you're not hyper focused, you know, locking eyes, you know, giving eye contact, but not psycho eye contact, just enough eye contact, you know what I mean? Nodding your head every once in a while to show that you're listening. So again, you want to actively listen, because there's so many times when people are in interviews, you could tell they're just waiting to talk. They're not actually listening. They're not absorbing what's going on. They're looking around the room. They're looking at their watch. And that's the worst thing to do. It's really, you want to be locked in, right? Like locked in, and because they feel it. The hiring manager feels that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You have to, as you mentioned, you have to actively listen.
Yes.
So, because sometimes some people start answering the question long before the question is even done.
Right.
You know, and it turned out that wasn't what they were being asked. So yes, they have to listen intently. But also, as I said before, pay attention to the person who was asked the question.
Mhm.
Give them that due respect. And yes, you can, look from time to time on the other panelists, but pay attention to that particular person who asked the question.
And Daisy, I just want to go back a little bit to the halo effect.
Yes.
For people who are not familiar with that concept.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not really sure if I always heard that expression, but I'm not sure if I know 100%. What does that really mean, the halo effect?
Okay, that's a good question. What it means is that somebody, so you're seeing me for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and I either rub you the good way or the bad way. I may come in, with an attitude, and there's a, who does she think she is? And even though I might be a great candidate, you have kind of, you got turned off. I mean, I don't like, that. And that's a negative piece. The positive part of the halo effect is, wow, I just love, the way Daisy shook my hand, she's confident and all of that. And regardless of what Daisy says in the interview, you have already concluded that she's going to be a good fit for this position. And I really don't care what else she says. That's the halo effect. That's the positive piece, meaning whatever I can't do anything wrong in your eyes, because in the first 10 seconds, you already arrived at a conclusion about me, positively or negatively. So that's what the halo effect is. The impression that you got at the beginning of our interaction. And that can be positive or negative. And that's why I mentioned the having the panel interview, because there might be somebody who might not like Daisy, there might be somebody who loves Daisy, and then we have that person in the middle who said, okay, I am the sober person here, so let's discuss why you don't like her, why you don't, and why you love her so much. And then, as you rightly said, they come to a consensus in terms of the decision. Yeah.
It's kind of like dating, even though I'm an old married man. So like I'm out of that scene for a long time, but it is where you kind of could tell pretty quickly, is this person going to be a fit or not fit?
Yes.
And it hits right on. But to the halo effect, going back to what pre-COVID, when, people would come into an office and meet with, face to face, I would tell like right away, because like you get this person who, let's say it's a 10 a.m. interview, and they, strut in at 10:15, no apology, no acknowledgement that it's 15 minutes late. They have their cup of Starbucks, put it down on the desk. And I'm like, well, at least you could have gotten me a Starbucks too. Nope, no Starbucks. Put their knapsack down or whatever on the desk. And I'm like, what's going on here? That's that's not making me feel good. And then I'll say something like, whatever. And they like, it's in my resume. I'm like, of course, resume.
Yeah.
Oh, it's in my resume, very indignantly. So they don't like, so right away, the halo effect is broken.
Yes.
Like, I am not, like, you're late, you didn't apologize, you didn't bring me a coffee, but you have your coffee. You didn't say sorry, you didn't come up with like why you're late. Maybe it was an interesting story. You kind of a little rude when I'm asking you a question. You say resume instead of having a conversation. And then it's hard to overcome that.
Of course. But that to me, Jack, is just somebody that is more about attitude.
Yes.
Because if you are late, there's so many things wrong with that particular approach. The person is late.
Yeah.
They saunter into the office. No apology. They slump on a chair. You ask a question. Well, it's already in my resume. Yeah. Listen, the halo effect wouldn't even come into play right there, because everybody on the panel would say, listen, this person is not going to be a good fit for this particular role. When we want somebody to arrive at 8 a.m. and this person is sauntering in at 8:15, no. You see, so the halo effect wouldn't really play. It would be so obvious that one, the person is being disrespectful because they're late, they haven't apologized, they haven't said, well, I missed the F train, or I didn't, whatever. Just commit. No, you don't, you are not gonna want somebody like that in your office. So that is more about attitude. And the attitude is on full display. And no, in our office, this kind of attitude isn't gonna work. Because remember, when you're hiring for a particular, when you're hiring someone, you're not only hiring the person in a vacuum. That person has to come in to fit in with your team. And if the synergy is good with your team, you want to make sure the person coming in is going to complement that team, not take away from. So somebody might be great at their technical skills. Oh, they might be a great programmer, and probably that's why, because, I'm so good, you better hire me regardless. And then it comes with the attitude. But you have to protect your team. And you want to make sure whoever you select is going to fit within that team. And when I say within the team, a diverse team, where there is synergy in that team. Everybody gets on, and even if they don't, they know how to handle little conflicts to keep the team cohesive and all of that. So somebody like that it would just be a no. Let's go to the next.
Daisy, so how do you feel about this? Well, it's interesting. I will still give that person a shot, believe it or not, because I'll put aside, because let's say they're really great, and I don't want to lose out on that person. So I will, to be fair, I would give that person, even though the halo effect is such that I'm like, I'll still kind of try to salvage it. Because I've had that happen times.
Yes.
Then they would open up like in the middle of the conversation, say, Jack, I'm so sorry I missed it. Here's what happened. And then maybe they'll tell this, real, being honest, and tell us like some sad story, what happened and why they were late, and et cetera. And then I'm like, oh, wow, I'm so glad I kind of really delved into it, because now this person's opening up, they're real, and I'm getting the feel that, okay, there's a situation, I get it. Let's move on and let's make this happen. So I'll give that chance. Now, I'm curious how you think of this, because a lot of people disagree with me on this. I feel that if somebody has a little bit of charisma, likability, nice, polite, upbeat, they will beat out somebody who has better skills. It's two people, same job, have better skills, maybe even a little smarter. But the manager and everyone else involved, when they weigh it, they're like, who do I want to work with day in and day out? Do I want to work with that person who's like obviously really great and smart and wonderful, but meh, personality, meh. The other person, fun, vivacious, upbeat, and they do have good skills. Don't get me wrong. They're not just all like schmooze. They have good skills, but not as good as the other one. And I think more often than not, hiring managers will pick the person for likability, their attitude, positivity, because they're human. They want to surround themselves with a person like that. What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And that ties in exactly with what I was saying about selecting someone who will be a good fit.
Yeah.
For the team, as long as all of the things are equal, they're equally qualified, they can do the job. But sometimes some people believe that because they're good at their technical ability, yes, I can do that, then that, because they can do it, then the soft skills, the other parts of them shouldn't matter
all the time. I can't tell you how many times that happens. Oh my God, you have no idea how many times that happens to me, where somebody, in fact, they get mad at me. It's almost like, how dare you not know how awesome I am? Like, how dare you?
Exactly.
Don't you know, it's the equivalent, don't you know who I am?
Yes.
Oh my God.
That's not gonna work.
No,
it's not gonna work. And that's where soft skills come in,
Yes.
where, you're able to demonstrate your interpersonal skills. You're able to demonstrate your communication skills, because
Right.
those are, in addition to the technical
Right.
ones, they also need these. And as recruiters have, hiring managers often say, we can teach the technical
Mhm.
skills. We can take a chance on somebody who is demonstrating some great soft skills, in terms of their communication, their, leadership, conflict management, and all of that. We will take our chances on somebody like that and
Mhm.
teach them the technical piece. It's harder to do the opposite.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Very hard. It's and then in terms of your clientele, if you don't mind my asking, are you
Mhm.
seeing in this environment, and what I know you're in Canada now, right? But
Yes, yes.
you do, you work with people in the US,
Mhm.
Dubai, other places.
Right.
Any trends that you're seeing when people come to you? Are they in between jobs? Do they want to advance within their company? Do they want to go somewhere else, pivot? Well, have you noticed anything that stands out?
Well, it's a it's a combination of all of the above.
Yeah.
Yes, some will be coming in because they're vying for a new role in
Mhm.
the organization, or with a subsidiary of the
Right.
organization. Like last week, I had to coach a gentleman who was going for a senior marketing director's role within a company that is a subsidiary of a larger company. So yes, so it's more like a promotion
Mhm.
for him. And then there are people who are just dissatisfied with where they are. They have been trying for a long time to get a promotion, and somehow nothing is happening. And so we will discuss the situation to see, how bad is this? Is it really that bad? Because if it's not all that bad, there are ways that you can present yourself, have conversations with your manager to say, where you would want to go career wise. Well, if you have tried everything and nothing is working, then that's probably time for you to start looking elsewhere. And remember, many people don't necessarily want to leave their
Mhm.
companies. Sometimes they want to leave the managers that they have, right? Where there is this, some misunderstanding. That's one. And then, they're just people who just want to switch careers. And that's where their transferable skills will come in. Somebody might be a teacher, and all of a sudden,
Mhm.
they want to work as an administrator, or they want to go into academia,
Right.
at a higher level, or whatever the case might be. So it's a different set of, I work with people at different stages in their careers.
You find some people, because I see this happening, where the example you gave, let's say you're in you're in your place, you maybe don't want to leave, but you're hitting that ceiling, that glass ceiling, the cement
Mhm.
ceiling, you can't go through. Um, and then they start having their self-confidence eroding, their self-esteem eroding. And
Mhm.
then maybe they go some interviews, and when they go on interviews, they're bringing that baggage with them and they don't perform well because they're just not happy. Do you
Yes.
see that? And if so, like, how do you do? Because I find that a lot where people are so frustrated. Let's say, especially people who are out of work for a long time, which of course, they're nervous. They're worried about the finances, worried about ever getting a job and so on. And
Mhm.
they're stressed, and it's hard to mask that. So have you had that? And if so, like, how did you help people just get them out of that funk?
Yes, it's hard, and I meet
Yeah.
up on that quite often,
Yeah.
actually. And it's like you say, they have been trying their best to, say, get a promotion,
Yeah.
and every time, nothing is happening. Then their self-esteem takes a dive, and they start questioning themselves. What's the matter with me? You know, I have been doing this job for so long. My reviews have been great, and yet I can't move in the company. And so the first thing we talk about is the mindset. And is to let them know that, listen, nothing is wrong with you. You are okay. But we also examine what have you been doing to help you to advance. For example, have you been doing courses? Have you been upskilling or reskilling? Something that you can present to say, not only have I spent 5 years in this role, but here are some of the developmental opportunities I've taken advantage of. Because some people believe that because they're there, because they have longevity, because they have years of service, it's a given that they're going to be promoted. Mm-hmm. But they have to make sure that they are reskilling, they are adding to their skills base. That's one. And then two, sometimes we do our jobs and we have our heads down and we're just working hard at it. But you know what? Our managers don't even know. They only know when things go wrong. Yeah. As long as things are, as long as things are going well, that's fine. So at times you have to have the conversation with your boss to say, you know what? We haven't had a good conversation in the last 3 months. Can I book some time in your calendar where, we can do a review on, what has been going well, get some feedback from you in terms of what I could be doing a little bit better. And so you keep that conversation going so that when it's time to approach the promotion, to have the promotion conversation, the boss can't say, well, oh, I didn't know that. And of course, you as the employee, you're keeping a journal of things you're doing, who you've worked with, the particular part of that project, the particular thing that you played, the role that you played in with that particular project. So when you're presenting it to your manager, that person will have it right in front of them. So it's going to be harder for them to deny you a promotion. They would have to come with something else. Oh, well, we don't have the money and we don't have, and sometimes again, it's not about the money. Sometimes just a shift in title can make a difference, even without another cent being added to the salary. Some people have been struggling at, oh, well, I'm the coordinator, when they're actually doing some managing, taking on some leadership role. Well, what's so difficult in giving me a title? Because for some people, that means a lot to them. So what's the difference in just, giving me a title as manager, because I'm already doing the job anyway, so yeah.
So there are a couple of threads I want to pull from there. Like one, and I was kind of laughing when you started talking about it, because I do find there are two different types of people. One is, like you were saying, head down, crunching out the work, doing the work and feeling, okay, I'm doing the work. Well, I'm going to be rewarded. Then the other spend most of their day trying to get noticed and trying to kind of, show people, look how hard I'm working, but they're not working. They're just going around, just trying to make it look like they're so important, so busy. And it's really interesting how you see these different types. But the ones who usually are the ones who are like, building a network, who are glad handing, who are sucking up to the bosses, they're the ones who do get, the promotions, because they're making themselves be seen. Where the one who's working, that other person's taking all the credit.
Right.
And they're left off. So that's something I'm glad you brought up, because people feel like just because I work hard, everyone knows I'm working hard, I'm doing well. No, you gotta advocate for yourself, right? You gotta really say, hey, here's what I'm doing. Go to, like you said, go to your manager, make sure they know what's happening. And I like you said, like keeping a journal or keeping records of your accomplishments, because after a whole year, you forget like half the stuff. So if you're constantly writing it down, then you have all the data to say, wait a minute, look what I've done. Do you realize this?
Exactly. Right? Exactly. But just to go back to what you're saying about the person who is, just there, being in the faces of the boss every now and again, you don't want that extreme either. So you don't want that because that person would be busy, would not be doing the work, but just be busy being visible so the boss can see them. And at the same time, you don't want the person who just has, his head down and, just working and stuff. You don't want that. You want to arrive at a happy medium. That means, yes, I'm doing the work, but I'm not going to somebody need to know that I am the one who is leading this project, or I'm the one who is a part of this project, and this has been my contribution. Nothing is wrong with that. And it's so interesting now that these days, hardly any organization is waiting on a full year to do a performance review. And even if they do, as a candidate, or as an employee, you can, create a conversation. I mean, say to your boss, listen, why not, let's meet on a monthly basis, 2 monthly basis, and just discuss my progress, because I don't want at the end of a year, that's when you're going to tell me that, Daisy, you didn't do so well here. And it makes it easier because when they're able to say, Daisy, you're doing great, but here are some areas that I think you could improve, it gives me a chance to start working on that. It doesn't leave me a whole year before I'm hearing that, well, you know what, you needed to improve in this area.
That's
so
great
it has
advice.
it has to be ongoing conversations, and the conversations don't have to be long. It can be a 15-minute touch base, coaching call to say, how are things going? And then
that.
you're able, yeah. So yeah.
Can I give you a third archetype person for the ones we're doing? Then there's a third person. I was thinking about this, who is only looking for that next job. So like they're working maybe 20% of the time, and 80% of the time they're dealing with recruiters, they're going on the job boards, and they're spending all the time to get that next job. But they're doing enough to keep their job. And these are the ones, like, you'll see the resumes, they keep moving, because they're always like looking for that next step. And a lot of times it works, and they keep getting more money, maybe another 10%, another 20%. And yeah, that's another style, which is out there.
That's another style, but you see, that's an issue too, because that person needs to do some self-reflection and determine what's important for me. Because if it's only, and if money is the driving force, then by all means, good luck. But you can't be, and I don't want to say job hopping, because job hopping is not a negative these days, because of the, the whole job climate. But if I find somebody, like you said, they get a job, they spend 20% doing the work and the other 80% job searching, it means something. Somebody's needs are not being met. And it's up to the individual, not the employer. It's up to the individual to determine, what is it that I'm seeking? Because I go into this job and I thought I had it, and then 2 weeks into it, 1 month into it, I start looking again. It means something. So a lot of self-reflection needs to be done. If I were going to coach somebody like that, I would say, listen, let's talk. What is it you're looking for? What would make you happy? What are some of the things that when you're doing it, you're so engaged that time is flying by and you don't even realize it? Because at some point you need to get to that stage where you can say, yes, I'm comfortable being in this role, 80% of the time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's great advice. And when just to kind of set the record, because I don't want to make anyone feel bad, when the person who's constantly looking, I'm not disparaging that person. I'm just kind of saying that's another thing. Because to be fair, especially in this economy with high inflation, high interest rates, especially if you're a relatively young person, and how are you going to come up with 20% for a down payment on a house? So like, a lot of people, you're forced into that spot. Like you
Yes,
have to, you literally have to kind of keep moving to get more money, because as inflation goes up, everything goes down. You know what I mean? Like, it eats into your
yes,
paycheck. So you kind of, in this environment, you
yes.
almost have to kind of
You
try to
have
see, how
to.
do I get, yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. I totally
yeah,
agree with you. And it's not
yeah,
a matter of disparaging that
yeah,
individual
yeah.
either. But it does mean if you have joined an organization and within 3 months, 6 months, you're spending more of your time looking for another job as opposed to working on the job you have. Because remember, it's not only about doing the job,
Right.
but it's learning new skills and doing the job, adding value to the job that you have been given. Doing more, or like I said, learning more skills so that you can move on to your next role. So it's not about, and like I said, it's not about the job hopping piece, because you have to be
Mhm.
practical, really. Um, the inflation is high for sure, but also, Jack, some people, they go to a job and as soon as they go there, something happened with that company and they're laid off.
Mhm.
So it's last in, first out, kind of. So yes,
Yeah.
we have to be practical. But I'm thinking in terms of somebody who just, all other things being equal, they go to one road and they say, oh, well, no, I have to start looking. Then I would have to, like I said, have the conversation. What is it that you're looking for? What is motivating you? Is it money? And then money
Mhm.
only motivates you to an extent. The
Right.
moment you get it, you start looking for more.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
let me, are there any questions like I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with the audience? And also any projects you're working on, any coursework that you'd like to unveil?
Well, I'll tell you about the project. I'll tell you about the projects
Okay.
first. So, as I said at the beginning, I am launching in the fall. I'm launching this interview course, how to
Mhm.
crush the interview and land the job you want. And it's again based on the clients that I work with, and some of the struggles that they do encounter. And big picture, I launched the Aspire to Grow Leadership Academy a few months ago, and that is in the developmental stage. And that part of it is really geared towards women, because
Mhm.
I have this affinity for women, encouraging women and reminding them of who they are, how great they are, what they can and cannot do. And within that part, we deal with, how to set their career compass, what it is that they want to do next. And I don't know if you're familiar with the fact that every year in January, I host a visioning event for women. And it's just we all get together and plan some strategies in
Mhm.
terms of, what do you want to achieve for this year? And in fact, during the pandemic, we actually ended up writing an anthology. 21 women got together out of the visioning event, and we wrote this book. And the rippling effects have been amazing. So those are, kind of where you will find me, part doing stuff with women, and now creating this leadership academy for women who want to be in a space where, they can find their voice at work, hone their leadership skills, again, like, plan their strategies on how to move from here to there. So that's my pet baby project that I'm kind of working on.
Well, that sounds fantastic. That
Yeah.
sounds great. The
Yeah.
only thing is, what about us guys? What's up?
You know,
Like,
it's funny because I do get that all the time.
yeah.
All the time I get men will say, okay, one guy actually asked me
Yeah.
earlier this year, so now you had Visioning 23. When are you gonna have one for men?
Yeah. Look, can I tell you something, Daisy? Seriously?
I am on this in this space where I personally
Yeah.
I like to just carve
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
for you know, for women, when we women get together to talk strategy, not get together, you know, some people, I was telling somebody last week, I said, you know what, when we get together, there are certain things that's not allowed. And one of them is gossiping. It's not to, if you're a gossiper, no, you're not
Yeah.
welcome. But it's really to, you know, people
Yeah.
get together and encourage each other.
Yeah.
Be there to say, yeah, listen, today you might be down, but tomorrow things are gonna happen. And so that's where we are. Probably having one for men might come down the
I
road.
think, you know, because I don't know if you see this, but it's interesting. And this might be a little controversial to a certain degree.
Mhm.
You know, what I've seen over the years, like recruiting for 25, you know, plus years, that over time, you know, it was like, hey, you know, women don't stand up for themselves. They don't negotiate as much. They don't negotiate hard. But then what I've seen, because of that narrative, they actually negotiate harder than men because they come into the negotiations feeling, hey, I'm going to get ripped off. So I'm going to go for it. Whereas men, not as much. So I've seen a big shift over the last 20 plus years.
Mhm.
Then also men, if you look at the data, they're not going to college as much as women. They're not going to law school as much as women.
Mhm.
You know, young men are like in their basement, you know, smoking weed, drinking, playing video games. And I'm not being facetious.
Yes, I know.
It's a thing that's
Yeah.
happening. So yeah, so like maybe consider for, you know, something for men. I know like you don't have to give away the other one. You can still do that one, but then, you know, you can
Well,
help, you know,
the thing is, I know where
your
my
strengths are.
strengths lie.
Yeah, yeah. But guys are so much fun. You'd have a good
Yes.
time. It'd be awesome.
No, I totally agree, because when in saying that
Yeah.
though, Jack, I have Mark, my clientele is you know, mostly women, but I do work with some
Yeah.
amazing men, and we're able to. I was telling you about my other client who just
Mhm.
moved back to Dubai,
Right.
and he said to me before he left, he said, Daisy, I'm going back. I'm going to be back because I'm a Canadian citizen, so I'm going to
Yeah.
be going back and forth. But he said, you know what? You're going to be my forever career coach. And
That's awesome.
I said, you know, okay, yes, I'm gonna want you to be
Yeah.
independent, of course,
Yeah.
but you know, you know, so he'll always be checking in with me. So I do have great relationships with anybody who, you know, they happen to be. It's just that my soft spot
Yes.
and and soft spot from the perspective of not being sorry for, you know, because that's not what it is. We talk about, you know, being inspiring and
Mhm.
motivating and transforming. That's the
Yeah.
type of conversation we have, and we encourage, and I
Yeah.
encourage in my group of women.
And also for a business model, it does make sense to have like, you know, a focus and a niche that separates because, you know, in business, if you kind of stretch yourself too thin, yeah. But if you like really focus, here's what I focus on, you know, I do X, whether it's coaching or any other business. Like
Exactly.
for instance, in recruiting, I focused on compliance because when I started, it wasn't a very popular area. So I thought, hey,
Mhm.
it's not popular, so I could kind of maybe really grow pretty quickly and do that.
Exactly.
Even if it's boring, it didn't matter because I figured, okay, this is a good niche that I
Yes.
can get and run with. So yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
so makes sense.
It's a niche
And
that
then
you
you
can
can,
own. Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, this is great. You know, I really appreciate. I think you gave the audience some amazing advice. And what we'll do is, you know, people who watch it now, but it's because it's LinkedIn because you don't know if they're watching now or not. But we'll you know, replay it and share it again. And I really appreciate you taking the time and walking through because you just laid everything out so neatly and so precisely. And it was all like actionable advice. It wasn't fluff. It wasn't this. It was like, here's what you could do. Boom, boom, boom. And this is what
Absolutely.
people need. And this is what gets me excited about doing these things, like speaking and listening to people like yourself who could really just walk through, hey, here's what you need to do, you know, A, B, C, you know, 1, 2, 3, and people could walk away feeling empowered. So thank you so much.
Yes.
And for if for people to find you, how can, LinkedIn or what do you
I'm
think?
on LinkedIn. I'm on
Okay.
LinkedIn. Just Google Daisy Wright.
Okay.
And if I come up as Jude Law's nanny, it's not me.
Oh, is your Daisy Wright? Is that the same name? Yeah. Okay. So
I
any
usually
other
tell
places,
people,
LinkedIn?
if you Google Daisy Wright and
Yeah.
you see that I was Jude Law's nanny and I was going around with him, it's me.
So you should own that and say, oh, well, that's something I don't talk
Yes,
about too much.
exactly. Yes. Or I'm on Instagram
Okay,
and
Instagram.
yes, so yes. But
Threads, Twitter,
LinkedIn and my website,
Okay.
therightcareer.com. That's where people can find me. And thank
Great.
you so much for hosting me today, Jack. I really appreciate it. And as I said at the beginning, I actually go back and listen to some of your recordings. I listened to the Morgans the other day, and I chimed into Ed Hans the other day. Well,
he was great, right?
Yes.
Really
Oh,
good.
absolutely. And I have Tara Orchard's one to listen to later.
Fellow Canadian, right?
I do gain value.
It is, right? It's and
well.
that's what I'm telling you, I love it because it's especially now because like people need this advice, they need this help. It's a tough environment. You know,
and you're getting, even if it might, this subject area might be kind of similar, you get different perspectives.
Yes.
And it makes you so much better. Yeah.
Yes. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And once again, for everybody, it's so Daisy Wright on LinkedIn. You're also, I couldn't get Twitter or
I'm on Twitter, Instagram. Career Tips to Go, and it's CAREERTIPS2, the number 2, Go. And I'm on Instagram, Daisy Wright _career coach.
Perfect. Great. And you know what we'll do in the notes? We'll put it in there so that people know how to find you.
Right.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. It was great seeing you again.
Yes, great to see you too, Jack.
Take care. Bye-bye.